Thank you very much, Alexa. Thank you for having me. Thank you all y'all for coming out. What a wonderful gathering. What an incredible institution. The lives you're touching each and every day. You know, you can't help but look at the faces of these precious babies and realize just how many lives are being transformed. And that, at the end of the day, is the legacy for every one of us. When we meet the good Lord, He's going to ask, what difference did you make in the lives of others? And inasmuch as you have done this unto the least of my brothers, you've done it unto me. And that's what y'all are doing every day. And so Heidi and I want to say thank you. We are honored to be welcomed into your midst, and I'll tell you, we're encouraged. We are so encouraged. You know, I think folks all over the country are worried about the direction of this country. But I want to share with you briefly just a word of optimism, which is, we know what's going wrong, but let's talk about how we turn it around. And we know how to turn it around too. We get back to the principles that made America great. We get back to the constitutional liberties, to the free market principles that built America to the greatest country in the history of the world. We understand cause and effect. Truth matters. And if we get back to an environment where we've got jobs and economic growth and opportunity, people are able to come out of school, and instead of wondering, how am I going to pay my loans, what's the future hold for me? It wasn't too long ago people came out of school, they had 2, 3, 4, 5 job offers. Because you had small businesses growing, you had opportunity, you had people moving towards the American dream. And we know cause and effect, that every time in history we've used tax reform and regulatory reform, every time we gotten government out of the way, it has unchained the incredible potential of free men and free women. And we need to do it again. We need to get back to tax reform. The best tax reform we can do is move to a simple, flat tax that lets every American fill out his or her taxes on a postcard. And when we do that, we should abolish the IRS. Now, there are over 90,000 employees at the IRS.
Oh my God.
We need to padlock that building and put every one of them on our southern border. Now, I say that somewhat tongue-in-cheek, but think about it for a second. Alexa, imagine you had gone thousands of miles in the blazing sun. Imagine you're swimming the Rio Grande, and the first thing you see is 90,000 IRS agents. You turn around and go.
That's right. Unless one of them was sick.
How about an IRS person? Would that work?
Carry on.
Well, and then secondly, the other major lever to bring back growth and jobs is regulatory reform. You know, I was meeting with some farmers out in West Texas, and I asked them, what's the difference between regulators and locusts? I said, well, you can't use pesticide on the regulators. And this old farmer leaned back and said, want to bet? But every time we have the federal government putting burdens on small businesses, on families, on ranches, on people trying to make better, it ends up drawing up the ladder to opportunity. And the single most important regulatory reform we can do, we need to repeal every word of Obamacare. We need to reform health care so health insurance is personal, it's portable, and it's affordable. It goes with you from job to job, and you have control, and you keep government out of getting between you and your doctor. Tell you the second key we need to do to reignite the promise of America is we need to defend our constitutional liberties. All of them. We need to defend the First Amendment. We need to defend free speech. We need to defend religious liberty. You know, every one of us, I'm sure, our hearts have been breaking this week as we watch what's happened in Indiana and Arkansas. And we've seen, number one, the far left demonizing and attacking efforts to protect our religious liberty. And I'm sorry to say we've seen more than a few Republicans running and hiding. You know, there was a time not too long ago when there was widespread bipartisan consensus on religious liberty. 20 years ago, the Federal Religious Freedom Restoration Act passed Congress virtually unanimously. Passed the Senate 97-3. Was signed into law by Bill Clinton, a Democrat. The laws that Indiana and Arkansas just passed are virtually identical to that law that passed Congress virtually unanimously. And yet now the far left has decided religious liberty is no longer accepted. That's heartbreaking. That's dangerous. But I got to say at the same time, it is encouraging that it's something that's waking people up. People are realizing, you know, we're a country that was founded by men and women fleeing oppression and coming here seeking the ability to worship the Lord God Almighty with all of our hearts, minds, and souls without government getting in the way. There is a reason that religious liberty is the very first protection in the First Amendment of the Bill of Rights, because everything else is dependent on being able to come on our knees before God. We got to get back to defending those liberties. We got to get back to defending the Second Amendment, the right to keep and bear arms. Pretty sure in South Carolina you all define gun control like we do in Texas, which it means hitting what you aim at. We need to defend our right to privacy, Fourth and Fifth Amendments. Keep the federal government out of our cell phones, out of our emails. We need to defend the 10th Amendment. Or as President Obama calls it, the what? The fundamental protection that says the powers not given to the federal government are reserved to the states and the people. That means there are certain areas the federal government has a responsibility to do and do well. Protect this nation. Stand by the men and women of the military. Secure the borders. But there are other areas the federal government has no business being involved, like education. And we need to repeal every word of Common Core. Yes. Education's too important for it to be governed by unelected bureaucrats in Washington. It needs to be at the state level, or even better, at the local level. We need to finally restore America's leadership. For 6 years, we've seen America receding from the world. We've seen the Obama-Clinton foreign policy of leading from behind, and it doesn't work. Instead of a president who boycotts Prime Minister Netanyahu, imagine America standing unapologetically alongside the nation of Israel. Imagine a commander-in-chief who stands up and says, "We will defeat radical Islamic terrorism." Yeah. And we will call it by its name. Yeah. Last I checked, it wasn't a bunch of ticked-off Presbyterians who flew the planes into the World Trade Apparently, you got weakness for our folks here, I'm sure, are thinking, those are our values. But can we get back to them? How do we turn it around? I'll tell you one of the most heartbreaking things. Today, for the first time in history, a majority of Americans think our kids will have a worse life than we. 65%. That's never been true the entire history of this country until right now. Let me tell you how we get back to those values we're talking. Every one of those values are common sense values that are shared across America in small towns, in small businesses, in families, in communities. They're who we are. We gotta remember who we are as Americans. We gotta remember that standing for religious liberty, standing for life, standing for marriage, those aren't fringe views. That's the core of who we are as a people, a nation built on Judeo-Christian values. And how do we get back to them? Well, the answer will not come from Washington. Washington is horribly broken. Trust me, I have seen it firsthand. The only answer is millions of courageous conservatives coming together, standing up, and saying, we will bring this country back. That's what we've got to do, is it's got to come from the people. Under the Constitution, sovereignty lies with we the people. You know, it's been 10 days since Heidi and I announced our campaign for president. I got to tell you, the enthusiasm, the energy, the encouragement, it has been breathtaking. It has been stunning, and I think the reason is simple. People are hungry. They're hungry for someone who'll tell them the truth and who'll do what he said he would do. At the end of the day, it ain't that complicated. Get back to who we are, and together, the people, we the people, we got to reignite, we got to bring back the promise, the miracle of America. And I'll tell you, that's happening. It's happening across South Carolina, and it's happening all across the country. And so I am encouraged, I am humbled. Heidi and I are going to spend a lot of time here in South Carolina. And we appreciate y'all being here, and I am proud to have the opportunity to stand with each of you and to work to turn our great nation around. Thank you.